Hi, I'm Brandon, and I'm going to be going over with you today AgXcel's GX5 Hydraulic Diaphragm Series of pumps. This model that I have in front of me is the LFP80 model. This is probably the most common model that we sell. The flow range of this pump is down to half a gallon per minute and up to 18 gallon per minute. So it fits all infra ranges, and it does a lot of nitrogen ranges as well. As we look at the inlet of the system here, we have a 2-inch flange, and we recommend feeding the pump with a 2-inch hose as well. Going through the system, we have our inlet filter. We even recommend having a filter as you fill the tank so you can prevent getting any sort of rocks, wood chips, whatever contaminants that you wouldn't normally get into your tank. So we recommend having the inlet filter there. We also recommend having another filter as you leave your tank to go to this pump system. Then we can make sure that really nothing bad is coming to this pump. And then we feed into the system. The pump itself is a positive displacement diaphragm pump. So basically what that means is for every revolution of this pump, you're going to get the same amount of product on the output side. So unlike a centrifugal pump or a squeeze pump, a ground drive pump, where it's just putting out a random amount, this you're going to get a consistent stream because again, it's putting out the same amount of product per revolution and it runs really smooth. Another positive about the diaphragm pumps as well is because they're a really smooth pump, they're also really gentle. So if you were to use a biological product, this diaphragm pump is a lot more gentle on the fertilizer. It's a great solution for that. So the pump itself, on the inside, these would be your diaphragms. This is the Blue Flex technology, the diaphragms. One side will be labeled for oil, the other side will be labeled for your fertilizer. So when you put your diaphragms inside your head of the pump here, you will know which way to put it in, and it's just one bolt that holds the diaphragm into the pump. And when the pump is spinning, in this case I have 3 diaphragms, one in the front here, one in the back, and then one underneath. It just goes in a circle of the pistons on the inside going in and out, and that's how your product will move through the system from there. So as we come out of the pump, this would be our outlet elbow. This right handle right here, this is an adjustable bypass valve. And currently we have it coming back to the inlet of the GX5. And we'll plumb it like this from the factory for you. And what you would use this for is if you wanted to internally recirculate the system, you could do that. Some guys do it to lower the pressure of their system. I would highly recommend that you change your orifice or your microtube that you have to either lower your pressure. That would be the best way to do it, because if you open this up too far, then you're not going to get enough product going out to your flow meter and out to the rows. You're going to have more product recirculating. Also, what some guys will do is they'll cut the hose coming out of this valve, and then they'll run the hose back to their tank, and they'll use it as a form of agitation. But again, you don't want to open this valve too far, or else you're going to be sending more back to the tank than you will to the rows. So coming out, or past the adjustable bypass valve, we have a safety valve here we call the spike valve. And that is rated for 100 pounds of pressure. Even though the pump itself is rated for well beyond 100 pounds, a lot of the plumbing after the pump and also your manifold is typically only rated for about 100 pounds. So if your system were to deadhead, when the spike valve opens up at 100 pounds of pressure, it'll just internally recirculate the product, so hopefully you don't pull any more from the tank, putting more product in the system, which will of course make more pressure. So that's just a safety feature is all that is. As we come out of the pump system, you will go into the magnetic flow meter that we have. The magnetic flow meter is really nice because there's no moving parts in it, which means there's really no maintenance to do to it besides winterizing the system at the end of the season. And also when you want to winterize the system, make sure you run an RP antifreeze through the system until you see it go through your side glass manifold and then out to the roads. You want to make sure you have RP antifreeze through all of your system. And then you can also, if you want to drain out the RP antifreeze when you're done, you can. Or else I'd recommend just keeping it in the pump. It helps keep the diaphragms moist as well. Because one of the biggest killer of the diaphragms is they'll crack. And typically that will come between usage of the system. When they crack, your oil in here is either going to seep out and then you're running the system with no oil, or more commonly what will happen is fertilizer will mix with your oil, it starts to look milky, and then of course as you get fertilizer inside the pump itself, where it's not supposed to be, then your pump will start to seize up if you don't clean it up quickly. So the magnetic flow meter, since it's magnetic, there's a lot less maintenance. And the way that it reads the product is it reads the ions in the product that you're using, and that's how it gets an accurate count of how much product is actually going through that flow meter. And then once you come out of the flow meter, in this case I already have a hose barb on here. If you have section valves, I have them mounted on the pump as well, and then you'll go out to your manifold, or else if you don't have section valves, such as in this case, you'll just run your hose out to your manifold that you have on your planter. Looking at the pump itself, the oil that we use is a non-detergent 30 weight oil. It's nothing proprietary that you would have to get from us, though we do carry the oil here. And then the diaphragms as well. We also have extra diaphragm kits here, so when it is time to replace those diaphragms, give us a call. We can give you an extra set. There are also on the inlet and outlet side, you'll have these kind of check valves that are on the inside. And sometimes when those start to get old as well, the springs in them will get loose and the pump can tend to surge a little bit. And that's also a sign that those need replaced. In terms of how often you have to change the oil, we recommend every year. In terms of replacing the diaphragms, we recommend every 2 to 3 years. And then for these valves that are on the inside here, we recommend about every 4 years to change those out. So it's always good to have an extra set of diaphragms on hand. So if they haven't been replaced within 2 to 3 years and it's way longer before they're replaced, and if it does crack mid-season, then you already have it on hand. You can quickly change it out. Looking at the PWM that is on the pump system here, we like to use the PWM pulse width modulation control valve to control the whole pump system. So either if you are using our AutoX controller, or if you were to use a Green Star, an Ag Leader, or Trimble, whatever kind of rate controller out there, it'll control PWM. And then we also use a 550 RPM motor as well. If you were to be using the V-Applied base, then let us know. We can get you the same motor, except for it'll have a speed sensor built into the side of it, and then you can see the motor speed which V-Applied base needs in order to operate their system, since they don't actually use a flow meter to control the flow of the pump. They use the speed sensor of the motor. So in this case, this one does not have the speed sensor in it, like most controllers that we use don't require that. Looking at the PWM valve itself, you will have a P mark for your inlet, and then a T mark for your outlet. Even if you have them reversed, your outlet side has a check valve in it, so you won't damage the system. Looking at this component, this will be your solenoid. There's a 2-pin plug right here. This would be your PWM plug. When the coil magnetizes, it'll magnetize so much, and then this stem right here, it'll raise this stem so much, and then that will allow so much hydraulic flow to come through, and then to run your pump system at the correct rate. So if you wanted to run this pump only with hydraulics, purely hydraulics, nothing to do with your electric controller, push down on this red knob, turn it counterclockwise, a half rotation, and it'll pop up. At that point, you're running the system completely in bypass mode, in a manual override mode. So again, it's going to ignore all electronics. Turn your hydraulics down low first before you do that, like maybe to 1 or 10%, depending on what kind of controller you're using. And then you can gradually increase your hydraulic flow from there, because we don't want to have the hydraulic flow all the way up. You open this up, and then say you're using a small orifice, your pressure builds up, and now your tops are blowing on your side glass manifold. And then if you want to put it back down, run it with your controller again, take your hand, push down, turn it clockwise a half rotation, and it locks into place. So now looking at one of the larger pumps that AgXcel offers, this is the LFP 160 diaphragm pump, positive displacement diaphragm pump. And in this case, this one has 4 diaphragms on it. It has a larger cavity on the inside, so it can handle larger flow. This pump can go down to 35 gallon per minute and all the way up to 35 gallon per minute. We also have a larger pump called the LFP 250. Basically, it's built the same as this. The pump itself is just a little bit larger. It has 6 diaphragms instead of 4 diaphragms, and that can go up to 55 gallon per minute with a low end again of 5 gallon per minute. So these 2 pumps are commonly used. All see in strip tillage or side dressing, where guys are putting out a lot more nitrogen. Looking at the inlet of the system here, this will be your inlet. Again, 2-inch flange on it, just like the previous LFP 80 and LFP 120 pump. We recommend using a 2-inch hose with this larger pump because you don't want to starve the system. As we go through the system, again, we have another 50-mesh filter. Then we go into the pump system. As we come out of the pump system, we will have this T right here, and this will again lead to your 100-pound spike valve, so you can internally recirculate products. Say if you were to have something deadhead, then your pump, no plumbing components are leaking anything. And then right here, You will again have your adjustable bypass valve. Again, we recommend keeping it closed, unless if you wanted to set up some sort of agitation, or if you were to lower your pressure a bit, then you could run this hose to your tank if you wanted to do some sort of agitation. And then as you come out of the system here, you will once again go into your magnetic flow meter. And then out of your flow meter, if you have section valves, we can mount them on the pump system itself, or else you'll just run your hose out to your manifold that's on your implement. And then same thing, motor and PWM. For all of our GX5 series of systems, we actually use the same motor and same PWM. So say if you wanted to get a new system, you could still use the same motor and PWM. We just have to give you a new flange kit, which connects the motor and PWM to the pump, and a new pump itself. Looking at the oil, same kind of oil as the smaller series of pump, a non-detergent 30-weight oil. You just have to use more of that oil, roughly 2 quarts compared to the smaller pumps, 1 quart, just because it's a larger pump. The diaphragms as well would be the exact same as the smaller pump series. The diaphragms are just a little bit larger. They're not interchangeable between all the models. Every pump has their own model of diaphragm kits. And same thing with the valves on the inlet and outlet of the diaphragm as well. They also have their own size valve, so you can't, again, share them with different models of pumps. And that is about everything with the GX5 hydraulic diaphragm series of pumps. If you have any questions, give us a call at 877-218-1981.